3, 2, 1. There's an SEC analyst out there that has Diego Pavia outside of his top 10. Is that disrespectful? Well, we're going to find out.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making us part of your day. Thanks for making us your first listen, especially heading into the weekend. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Man, that's amazing. So here's the roadmap of the show. Okay, this is kind of where we're going to go. We're going to talk a little bit. There's some SEC expansion happening that's going to involve some teams coming into the league possibly. There's rumors floating out there. There's some possibilities. So we'll discuss that. Vandy's scheduling practices. We'll take a look at that as well. In light of what's happening with the Big Ten and ACC complaining about the SEC scheduling, we're going to take a look at how Vandy is scheduling their non-conference opponents, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit as well. And of course, like you have all these preseason rankings. It's talking season. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But there's an SEC analyst out there that's like, I guess doesn't believe in Diego Pavia, and I guess doesn't think he can do it in year two for whatever reason. And, well, actually, you know what? Let's get into that. Jordan Rogers, Vandy guy. Which I'm kind of surprised. Like, I know he's trying to be objective, and I get that, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. He's got a job to do. He's played the quarterback position at the SEC level. I don't agree with him. Right. And I think it's a little bit disrespectful to what Pavia has done and produced coming into the season. Now there's a chance that Pavia could play his way out of those rankings, and there's a possibility that he could play his way into the top of those rankings. It's all right there. All the possibilities are there, of course, but like I don't necessarily disagree with his reasoning. I think if you have good reasoning, you can justify. But Chris Doering had him in his top 5. There's a lot of people that have had him anywhere between 5 and 10. I've seen a couple people have him at like 3, 4, maybe. So he's just kind of all over the place. And honestly, I get it a little bit because he's tough to judge because he plays the game so uniquely that it's tough to really quantify just where he is. But to me, I think, and here's kind of the tail of the tape and I don't know if he put out a rankings graphic, so I don't know. And I don't think he went through all of his guys in the exact order of who he's got. But I know he had Arch Manning in the top 5. I think he said John Mateer was his favorite quarterback. But here's the thing about Diego Pavia compared to John Mateer. John Mateer produced at Washington State. Great. And I'm high on John Mateer. I think he's going to do extremely well for Oklahoma. He's got his offensive coordinator coming with him. That's a huge deal. I think there's a lot of potential there, but it's just that potential. Diego Pavia has already produced in this league. He's produced 2,230 passing yards, 800 yards rushing. That's pretty much mostly before the Kentucky game because he got injured in the Kentucky game and wasn't as effective as a rusher after that. But he scored 8 touchdowns there. He scored 20 through the air, so 28 total touchdowns. He's got 4 interceptions. I think he gave the ball away once or twice. There was a sack fumble against South Carolina that he gave the ball away. But he takes care of the ball. He scores a lot. I mean, he's produced a lot of great moments for Vanderbilt. I mean, he put the Commodores on his back against Alabama. I mean, that's got to count for something, right? And you can't really quantify that, honestly. But like you have to say, okay, well, if you're going to rank them, it's all subjective anyway. Like you can rank the stats, you can rank, but like somebody who's watched every single quarterback, I'm not saying rank him number one. I don't know that he's number one in the league. I think that's Nussmeier or Lenore Sellers, whatever your preference is there. I don't think it really matters. I think they're both really good. But outside of that, like you got to look at the guys who's produced in this league. Taylor Green, Diego Pavia are two names that really come up in a short amount of time, mostly due to injury. DJ Lagway, I think you have to mention. I don't know if it's enough, but I think you got to mention that. And then there's a whole list of other guys that you're just like, I don't really know what to do with these guys, like Ty Simpson, Arch Manning, Gunnar Stockton. You have Bo Pribula, Zach Calzada. Well, I know what to do with Zach Calzada. Blake Shapen, John Mateer. Those guys, like the new guys, the new starters. Mateer's not necessarily a new starter, but he's new to the SEC. So it's kind of like a, what do you do? Throw your hands up like, I don't really know what to do. But I think with these numbers in this league, with that schedule and the amount of wins he produced, I think he's better than top 10. I think he's in the top 10. He's got to be. Otherwise, Vandy would have finished with 3 or 4 wins, maybe 2 wins because they lost to Georgia State. Like, I don't know that Vandy produces without a top 10 quarterback. I don't know that they produce anything. I don't know that Eli Stowers becomes what he is without Diego Pavia. I think Eli Stowers is great. I think he would, NFL wise, I think his talent would have shown through, but I don't think he produces the numbers or gets the all conference nods and the all American nods. And I don't think you look at Eli Stowers the same way that you look at him right now. If Diego Pavia is not good, I just don't think that this Vanderbilt team does what it does and has the preseason. Like I think Vanderbilt's getting fairly well respected as a team in these rankings. So why not like have your quarterback have the same, like you have to have an elite quarterback for a team like that to be elevated. And I just think that that's kind of where we're at on that. But, I think the argument was this, he's the book is out on him, teams will figure him out. He's not this, he's not that. And, and I've said before, I think it's a lazy argument. I think if that's your argument, it's lazy. Now, if you threw out some arguments for other guys and why, then, that's valid. I can live with that. Like I could live with you reasoning why John Mateer is the best in the league, in your opinion, coming into the season. I can, you can tell me why, you can see why Lenore Sellers, I think, is slightly above Diego Pavia. I think he's got more. I think he produced more wins. I think he produced more great moments for South Carolina than Diego Pavia did for Vanderbilt, which I don't know if Diego Pavia is not injured, if he does. But then again, like it showed a big deficiency in his game that, I think is a blessing, because had he not gotten hurt, I don't know that he would work on developing as a pocket passer as much as and I don't think he would have been aware of that as much as he is right now. So, I think the book is out on him as lazy, and, it just assumes that he's not going to get any better. It just assumes that he's going to stay stagnant and he's going to actually regress because teams are going to stop him in the run. Well, that's just assuming that the offense isn't going to evolve, which it is, and it will. And it's assuming that he won't evolve as a quarterback and playing the position and not just being a running back, which I don't think he is. I don't think he ever was. And I think he got better a little bit down the stretch of the season as a pocket passer. He had to, out of necessity, because his ankle was beat up. He got laid on by a Kentucky defender. The need for him to be better as a pocket passer was there. Was he as good as he wanted to be? No, probably not. But he understands that he has to develop as a passer, and he's going to do that. There's more talent built around him. There's more weapons. There's more guys. Like I was watching the replay last night of the Alabama game, and he threw a freaking dime to Junior Sherrill at one point on a corner route, and Sherrill just dropped it. He was wide open, but a chunk play, more points, more possibility at points. And at that point, the game was at 20-7. I mean, you get down there in scoring range, you make that thing 28-7, and it's blowout city, right? Guys are getting open, and there's going to be better weapons around him there's going to be more options. Eli Stowers is going to be better. Tim Beck is going to be better as a play caller because of all these options. I think your offensive line is going to protect better, and he's going to develop as a passer in the pocket. He says that's his goal. He wants to do that. Of course, he's still going to be himself, but I think him being a better pocket passer will allow him to be a better version of himself and will allow him to do the things that he likes to do, that he's really good at. It'll allow him to highlight his strengths while building up his weaknesses, and you're going to see a much different quarterback. And I think, to say that defenses will have him figured out is very one-sided in saying, okay, Vanderbilt's not going to just say you don't think Vanderbilt's going to win. I mean, that's what you're saying. You're saying they're not going to develop. Diego Pavia, he got lucky that his offensive coordinator bailed him out all the time, and ignores the fact that he dropped dimes on several occasions on these shot plays. He ran all over Alabama. He ran all over Missouri. He ran all over Auburn, ran all over Kentucky. I mean, he just, in the wins, he really kind of dominated. In the losses, I think there was a lot of things that went wrong, but I don't think he played poorly in any of the losses. I think that the entire team, except for Georgia State, the entire team played like crap. And I think that was a team issue, not a Diego Pavia issue. But all of the losses were not Diego Pavia issues. They were team issues. And so you look at that and say, okay, well, they're going to fix all of that. He's going to fix his deficiencies, and they're going to be really good. So my outlook with him is this. They're going to have a more loaded roster. We know that. And they're going to take advantage of that. They have an offensive scheme that he already knows well that's going to be enhanced. I think you're going to see more things there to be able to take advantage of what defenses and what they anticipate defenses are going to do. Like Tim Beck is going to look at that and go, okay, well, if you're going to say that about Diego Pavia, well, defenses haven't figured out. Well, don't you think Tim Beck knows that? Tim Beck's like, oh yeah, they got him figured out. So what are we going to do? Oh, we're just going to do the same old thing and hope that we can just. That's not ever how any coach thinks. It's a chess match. Oh, the defense is going to catch up. Well, we're going to catch back up, right? And the defense may get you a couple times, and then you're going to move ahead, and then it's going to be this chess match, right? And he's going to excel because the scheme is going to enhance. His game is going to enhance. I mean, I think there's a lot of things at play here where I think Diego Pavia is going to do extremely well for this team. And I just want to reiterate that I hate the argument that he's going to stay stagnant, which I don't think is true at all. He's going to improve. This team is going to improve. That's what football is. Teams improve, right? And for people to say that Diego Pavia is going to dominate because he dominated last year is also a lazy argument, right? I'm not saying that he's going to dominate because he dominated last year. I'm saying he's going to continue to dominate. I'm not even saying he's going to dominate. I'm saying he's a quality quarterback. He's going to do well. He's going to excel because I think there's things in motion that allow him to excel. And football is a team sport, and the team has done things to enhance itself and to improve their roster and their standing. The scheme's going to improve. Defenses will improve as well, and there's going to be that chess match. And it's going to be up to Diego Pavia to make those plays, and I think he's capable of making those plays. I think he has the leadership qualities to inspire everybody around him. So I think all those factors lead to, yes, he will excel. Yes, he will do extremely well for Vanderbilt. And yes, defenses will play him differently. And it's going to be a chess match. They're going to get him some. They're going to collapse the pocket. They're going to sack him, right? They might pick him off a couple of times more than he had last year. Like there's going to be some plays where that didn't happen to him last year that happened to him this year because defenses have figured him out. But it's all in how Vanderbilt responds, and I think Vanderbilt is going to have a response. So anyway, I'm sure Jordan Rodgers has his reasons, but it is what it is. But talking about scheduling, the Big Ten, man, they are been out of shape. ACC's been out of shape. They're taking time to make comments about the SEC, whether they're tongue-in-cheek or not. They're taking the time and the energy to make the comments about the SEC. We'll talk about what those comments are and how Vanderbilt is actually either playing into them or combating them. We'll talk about that next. All right, talking about FanDuel first, though. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball, golf, soccer, like you have some high stakes soccer tournaments, things like that. MLS is raging on. FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Think about that. And, I've been using FanDuel to track my matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to bet. Like all these same game parlays, all the ones that are built by all the people that are, sponsored by FanDuel and things like that. Like they have their, everyone has their kind of parlay builders and stuff. Those are kind of fun. And it's easy to use. It's fast to pay out. And it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. I mean, even if it's like a couple of bucks, if you throw in some action on a game, man, you're going to be invested in it, man. You're going to be rooting for things. And honestly, with the NFL season coming up, that helps me really be able to root for some of these NFL games that I would normally not care anything about. So whether I'm placing a same game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. So are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you need another listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go for you. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job with all of that, and it is truly a great show. He hit multiple home runs, grand slams at SEC Media Days, and he's still rolling out content from that. So be on the lookout for all of that. And the SEC Squad shows are second to none. And I didn't get a chance to participate in the SEC Squad show this week, so I wanted to talk about what they were talking about, and I wanted to kind of throw my take in there as well. And our good friend, our dear friend, who just got engaged recently, Chris Marler, congratulations, by the way, Locked On Gamecocks. He created this graphic, and it's in response to like Kirk Cignetti and Rhett Lashley talking about, and they were joking, but they made note of the SEC scheduling, scheduling practices, and he made this graphic. Okay. Pictured Kirby Smart in it because I guess that's just kind of what you do. Georgia's top dog, I guess, pun intended. So here's the schedule, and it's actually bottom up, right? Or bottom. I don't know how you say that, but he listed the least ranked team first, and he went in reverse order. So here's kind of how the SEC teams stack up as far as the most non-conference games versus Power 4 teams from now until 2034. And so Ole Miss is obviously leading the charge on that. But if you look at number 7, Texas and Vanderbilt kind of sit in that 7th spot. And I think it's interesting because, SEC teams get hammered for not scheduling Power 4 opponents and things like that. And I think with the conference realignment stuff in flux, it's really kind of tough to really kind of schedule some things out. So I think that's slowed down a little bit. I think teams used to be more aggressive in scheduling out in the future, but now I think with all this movement and realignment, I think people have kind of pumped the brakes on that a little bit. So, expansions, adding conference games and all that good stuff, I think is, something that's difficult to kind of project. But like I said, here is they're tied with Texas at number 7. And I think it's interesting because, I think, and I don't know if these games will stick because like if they go to 9 conference games and Vanderbilt hasn't really scheduled much out past 2027 because I think there's some notions that, hey, things might shift dramatically. So they might have to like cut bait, and they don't want to cut bait with like 4 teams. So, I think they've only outside of 2026, they've really only scheduled 1 out of conference game. So they want to leave it open for the rest of it. And so there's a lot of room for additions and things like that. So here's some notable ones that I've noticed on the schedule up through 2034. You have a home and away with NC State, a home and away with Stanford, and a home and away with Purdue, which I think is, is really, Purdue, I think when they scheduled this, Purdue was actually decent. Purdue's never really been a world beater since Drew Brees, but they've had some pockets of some good football, and they've had some pockets of some extremely horrendous football. And right now they're horrendous, so that game doesn't look as good as it did, I think, when they added it to the schedule. Stanford, I think, was another game. It's an ACC matchup now, which is also kind of strange. But like Stanford's been kind of stagnant a little bit, but I think they're back on the rise now with Andrew Luck being the general manager, and I think they're starting to get themselves in line. So if this game stays put, I think by the time Vanderbilt gets to Stanford, I think Stanford's going to be really good. They're going to be building back up because I think they're going to have some stable leadership after they lost David Shaw. After he left, I think that's when they started really going downhill. So that game's going to get really good by the time they play them. I think in 2027 and 29, I think is when they play Stanford home and away. And then NC State, I think they play them in 26, and then I think they don't play them again until like 28. But it's it's an interesting series against NC State because they're a quality, stable, consistent program that I think is a really good matchup for Vanderbilt. And I think both of these teams are kind of on the rise a little bit. NC State probably more of a roller coaster than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt spent more time in the Valley and less time at the peaks, but I think they're back climbing out of the Valley, and they're making their way to being more of a consistent program. And NC State is certainly that. And then Delaware was an interesting matchup I saw next season. They're a future FBS program, so I think they're getting into the Sun Belt maybe, or they're getting into one of those FBS conferences after I think they're doing some sort of probational thing. I don't know a whole lot about Delaware's situation, but I do know that they're trying to get into FBS and they want to be an FBS program. So there's that. But I think it's interesting that Vanderbilt I think these are interesting games that Vanderbilt has scheduled because I think they're challenging enough, but I think they're kind of right where Vanderbilt needs to be. Like there are these Power Four games that I think Vanderbilt needs to conquer before they start, they start climbing on to more challenging games. And I think it's a good progression for Vanderbilt. And you're playing Power Four teams, and these Power Four teams also need that progression. So I think these are really good matchups, really competitive matchups, and that's kind of what you want in these non-conference things, in these non-conference deals. So it's a lot of fun. I think the Stanford game is going to be, that game is always fun. It's the battle of the brains, and we joked on SEC After Dark that the big brain schools do a good job of playing each other, like the Dukes and the Stanfords and the Northwesterns and all that. So I think it's good. I think it's good that they're scheduling out. I don't think you can blame Vanderbilt. Now, a lot of this could change. Like there could be a Big Ten crossover game. There's a lot that's still on the table with conference expansion, conference scheduling, going to 9 games, playoff expansion. Like how does that affect things? Like there's going to be a lot of change, and that's why I made the note: rest of schedule is subject to change due to all of that scheduling stuff and all the nightmares that come with that and all of the headaches that potentially come with that. That's why I think advanced scheduling has really slowed down for everybody because they're just not sure. But there's some rumors out there. There's some rumors floating around out there. I said conference expansion. There's some rumors floating out there about some teams that are thinking about joining the SEC. That would be interesting. We'll talk about it next. All right, wrapping up the show here very, very soon, but wanted to mention at Locked On Vandy, follow us on social media. Thank you to the everydayers. Thank you to the people who have stuck around to the third segment to check us out. So I appreciate all of you. And make sure you like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and make sure if you want to follow the other 15 shows on this network for this conference that represent this conference are extremely incredible. They're great. I think we might be the only conference that has every member represented with the Locked On show. That's also what makes us better as a conference, right? We have every team represented. Does Big Ten? I'm not sure. I don't think Rutgers has a show, or Maryland. Well, no, Maryland does have a show. Purdue just got a show, so that's a step in the right direction. So I don't know that the Big Ten has every show represented or every team represented with a program. I know the ACC definitely doesn't. And then there's some that have shows, but they're dormant. So that doesn't really count as having a show. There's just something out there, and they recorded something 3 years ago, but like Georgia Tech. But here's the thing, man. That's what makes us great. That's what sets us apart. Even in the Locked On Network, we're the best college. We're the best college group out there. I don't care what you say. Anyway, speaking of expansion, us being the best conference in college football, us being the greatest conference in the Locked On Network, I think there's a lot of teams that want to join, and I'm not talking about the Locked On Network piece of it. They will join by default, but there's 4 teams that want to explore leaving. Well, there's a lot of teams that want to explore leaving the ACC, and there's a lot of teams that are asking to come to the SEC. But I've heard there was rumors floating around out there. UNC is actually formally exploring it and leaving the ACC and coming to the SEC. And they said, well, we're not coming alone. We're going to bring Clemson, we're going to bring Virginia, and we're going to bring Georgia Tech to the conference. So I think that would be a home run for this conference. I think if you're taking into account all sports, adding Virginia and North Carolina is incredible. North Carolina, just as a brand in basketball alone, I think raises the stock of your conference. I think gives you access to a whole new market in the Carolinas that you didn't once have previously. I think Virginia coming in with academics, with baseball, with basketball, and even football occasionally, they're pretty dang good. They bring up the stock with everything, and there's a rivalry there with North Carolina. They've played for a long, long time. Ever since Stephen Willis was a young lad in 1892, they started playing. So there is merit to that, and you have a good rivalry that would be a conference game that I think people would tune into. You have a lot of great storylines around that. Of course, you bring Clemson and Georgia Tech into the fold, which I think eliminates the need for South Carolina and Georgia to play out of conference to have those games. I think it puts Georgia Tech back in its rightful place, even though that's kind of weird to say. They were once in the SEC, and they got kicked out or ran out or whatever, and locked out by the Mississippi schools. So that would be interesting to see them come back into the conference. Clemson, I think they would renew their rivalry with Georgia as well. I think that being a conference game, I think that would, because they used to play every year, Georgia and Clemson, or most years. And they stopped, I think, when things grew, the SEC grew, the ACC grew, and I think those teams naturally grew apart in their yearly matchup because they just couldn't do it every year. And now I think that being a conference game, and if you go to 9, and if you end up expanding the playoffs as a result and going to 9 conference games, I think you can have Clemson as a permanent opponent for Georgia. So that would be an interesting rivalry as well. So all of these moves, I think, would be incredible for the conference as a whole, because I think it rises your stock. I think it gives you marquee matchups, and I think it gives you challenges. Like, I think Vanderbilt could have a natural rivalry with Virginia, North Carolina. I think Georgia Tech coming in would be great for Vandy, because I think it gives you those rivalries that they once wanted. I think there's some natural schools there that are very much like Vanderbilt that they could kind of match with. And that's not saying Vanderbilt can't improve to be in the upper echelon, but as the journey goes on for that, like, I think adding these schools, I think makes an interesting twist for the conference. And I think it gives you new matchups that you might think are awesome. It gives you some new potential as some rivalries that you didn't think were possible. Like, who knows, like North Carolina, Arkansas could turn into some like brooding, boiling rivalry. Who knows? Like, that's kind of random, but that's the most random one I can think of. But there's a lot of possibilities there, and I think there's some TV markets there, the DC market, the Charlotte market. I think you get into there. I think you get most of the Carolinas with Clemson. You get South Carolina's natural rivalry there with the Palmetto Bowl that turns into a conference game with conference implications, which I think makes that game even more exciting than it already is. And then you get, of course, another premier team in the conference. So, when you talk SEC, you can truly, because everyone's like, oh, the SEC is this, the SEC is that. And, there is a leg to stand on, of course. But when you make that argument in the future, you can really have a leg to stand on when it comes to the league, when it comes to the quality of the league and all that stuff. So very excited about what's happening here with the SEC, and very exciting about that possibility. That's not going to happen overnight. They would have to, there's buyouts, there's paperwork, there's contracts, there's things that would have to happen. And I know Greg Sankey's like, well, I'm not looking to expand. Well, he wasn't looking to expand when Texas and Oklahoma came calling. So who knows? Like this is a great thing for the league. And I think this is something that they can look to and say, okay, well, hey, we're at 20 teams, Big Ten. Your move next. You're sitting at 18. You need to add 2 more teams. We just took all your best options, and now they're gonna try to add Notre Dame, which Notre Dame is gonna be stubborn. And then they're going to be looking for, okay, who can we add in this league that would be to the caliber of Virginia, North Carolina, Clemson, and Georgia Tech. And so they would then try to figure that out, and that would be kind of fun. But anyway, coming at you a little bit later on a Friday than usual. But I want to get you into the weekend. Wanted to talk about that stuff because I didn't get a chance to talk about it in the squad. Saw the Jordan Rodgers stuff like that, and wanted to make a case for Diego Pavia. But we'll see you back here next week on the Locked On Vandy podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Follow the show at Locked On Vandy. It got really dark for some reason. I think the sunlight and all this stuff is kind of going crazy. But we'll see you back here next time. And anchor down, behave yourselves, have a great weekend. Peace.